Okay, we're back at it here. We're going to fabricate the heel to fit this part of the project, the 10 by 10 opening, the radius heel and the radius throat for that. Now we're going to make the heel and the throat, which is on the next page. So I'm just going to pop it out of here so you can see this is the throat section. If we turn it, we will have our heel section as well. So they're the exact same width, 8 inches, and right over here is 8 inches. The lock former that we have in the shop is a 7/8 take-up. Most are an inch on the top, as well as 7/8 on the bottom for both of these. We're going to build them as one because, again, this 7-inch piece is going to be probably approximately 7 inches, and it's a little bit too small to go through the lock former without getting jammed up. So we're going to go at fabricating this as a one whole piece again, and we'll take care of it with our lock former at that point in time. So the first thing I did was I cut my piece 8 plus 7/8 plus 7/8 in the width for these edges, and from the lock form is going to come up to 9 3/4 inches wide, and then we're going to figure out our length later. I just took it off a 36-inch sheet, and I'll probably have a few inches of scrap, maybe, I don't know, 6 inches of scrap or something like that. Same here, 8 plus 7/8, 7/8 is 9 3/4, so I cut that sheet, the length, 36-inch sheet, 9 3/4 wide all the way down, and now we're going to set our 7/8 marks, or most lock formers will be an inch. So find your 7/8, and we run them down each side. Flip it over, and we'll do the same thing to the other side. At that point, we've got our take-up for our lock former, and you can verify that between marks you should have your 8 inches in between that setup. So after it gets run through the lock former, it should be turning out to 8 inches right on the button there. Okay, let's take care of our open ends first of all. We got this side open. These two are connected together, so I won't work with that right now, but this side's open. And what it says to do is we got to have a 3/4 inch depth notch in here right on the 7/8 mark. So let's take care of that on both sides. Same over here. 3/4 inches deep on our notch there on our 7/8 mark, both sides. So here we go. We'll take them out of there. I'll save a couple of them chunks for later, just so you can use it as a pattern. And now let's finish out this on this side of the sheet for the throat, right on the 7/8 mark there, both of them with that. That's nearly complete. I'm just going to save that for maybe doing a little bit of measuring later on here. But the next thing I got to do is I got to determine my length before I can mark these sections out. And being these are radius, you can refer to page 60 and calculate it, which I believe on this plan I've got it on the next page, which is, if you remember the formula from the previous project, it is half of pi times the radius that you want to work with. So if it's the radius of the throat, then it's only this section. If it's the radius of the heel, then you got to take in the whole entire distance from your pivot point. So I've applied that. So let's go back to the plan and let's figure out what this length should be on our heel. The heel is taken up from the entire project so we got 10 and 4 is 14 plus a half inch right there, and that's what we're looking at. So we're at 14.5 inches is our radius to make this section, this distance. So we're going to take half of pi 3.14 divided by 2 and multiply it by that radius, the 14.5, and it comes out 22.77. Now 22.75 would be 3/4. So I've got that jotted down already, and I've taken the time to do that. So I've written that down on this piece of scrap here. But it's always good to verify it. So I showed you that on the previous project as well. We're going to take the part and we're going to verify it. I'm going to pull my tape measure out here. So I've got something at least 22 inches long out there, and we're going to see how close this comes up to 22 3/4. So we're going to take the wire, the string, or whatever you want to do, or you can just roll it on the table as well, and we're going to walk that around there till we find exactly where it comes out on this bottom point here. all the way out to here. So it looks like on this cable it's right on that O lettering, which she's stamped on the jacket. Then I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to put it on my tape measure, pull it as tight as possible, and it appears that it measures maybe just a little bit over 22 3/4, or I'm going to go at 22 7/8 for this part of the project. And you can verify it with the other one as well. Now let me discuss why that discrepancy maybe has played a role on that 1/16 of an inch. It usually comes in either me cutting it wrong up here someplace, or maybe me easy edging it where it's maybe a little bit thicker or thinner on this side edge as well. So that'll all play a role in the distance around this outside. So I'm actually going to cut my part 22 7/8 to match this elbow. It's very, very close, but I wasn't 100% right on with that. As long as my dimensions are out there, I think we'll be okay with them. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to verify the distance for my throat take up as well. So again, we can use the same practice, and we can use the pi, or half a pi, times our radius of 4.5 inches. So let's punch that in. We got pi divided by 2 equals 1.57 times 4.5, 4.5, and it comes up to 7.06. Now 0.0625 is a 1/16 of an inch. So we're looking at 7 1/16. So let's verify that as well with our wire or string here. Whatever you have that's convenient. Okay, so we're going to roll that around, and we're going to mark that right on the edge of the sheet. And try to pull your tape measure, because I didn't pull it out before. And let's see where that one came out to. And it appears that that one is 7.5, where we figured it was 7 1/16. So that one was quite a bit difference. And you can see it, that it's not a true radius. It looks like I'm a little bit shy right in this area with that contour. It looks like I could have done just a little bit better job. So you can fix that as well by running it through the easy edger again, or you can make it the proper dimension. So with that, let's get into it. You just want to make sure it fits, and it's, when you get done putting it together, that the edges line up and you don't have like a big gap or anything down there. So I've got those two numbers written down with that, and I think I've stored it in my memory of my calculator, and I got plenty of reference marks to look at that. So let's start with the first one. We measured this distance from here to here. We said it was 22 7/8 via the part. So let's go ahead and we're going to mark that next. I really like this scribe with the pencil, the pin style. It works really nice. Okay, so 22 7/8 will get me the distance from here all the way around to here. So I'm going to mark that right on the sheet. And I always put a little tail, because, you know, the line could be something like this, and you don't know if it's here or wherever they marked it. So I always put the tail right on the mark, the 22 7/8 section there. And then I grab my square out, make sure it's long enough. And this one will just reach if I know it right. Set it up on my mark, and then scribe that a square mark right across there. That area should be the external portion of my part there, and I can kind of verify that somewhat close, and I slid on that, you know, and you can check that to make certain it's going to come out right on the edge of the piece if you take a little more time with that than I did. Now that's the edge of my throat. The edge of my throat as well as the edge of my heel. So I've got that completely set up there with those distances, and now I'm going to measure the throat, which I got buried here, onto the part, and I said it was going to be 7 3/8 of an inch that we calculated, 7 1/16. I verified it with the cable, so we're going to measure it 7 3/8 for this part. So if I set my tape measure on here, and I try to usually mark these close to the end because they can get lost pretty easily in the in the shadows. So 7 3/8 right there. Put the little tail on it, and we're going to square that off as well. I'm going to actually make an adjustment on that. Being as I got these marks here, I'm just going to remove the centers. It's up to you. Being as I didn't cut the length of the sheet, let's cut 7 3/8 from the edge back. We'll go this direction. 7 3/8. Right there. I'll remark that. 7 3/8 all the way across. I'll verify it. 7 3/8 right there. Good. At this point in time, I'm just going to have this center section. There's what, out of the 36-inch sheet, there's about 6 inches of scrap on there, and they're just going to be taken out later. In the past, I had these closer together, where I would just simply take the sections and cut the barn roof out of there. This one we can do that as well, or we can just, you do 1/2 or however you want to take care of that. So we're going to get ready to notch it. We'll mark our distance here. The setback, this one's really not important to us, but it will be important on this section over here. So if we set it again, and then knock them down with a tin snips. So with your tin snips, I've got 2 of them here. We're just going to cut them out of there, just as if it was separate. If we took our notcher and we cut it in there, and remove that section right to there, and we'll just cut this off. So that's 1/2 of the barn roof, and then let's get the other half as well down here. Oops, I need the other snips unless I keep going the other direction. And there's the other half of that barn roof if we bring them back together and get rid of that. And then I got to do the same on the other side. So just as if they're separate, taking my notcher, cutting them out of there, something like that, and down here as well. And I'll flip the piece over, and we'll cut those sections out also. So I got it turned around, the left half of the barn roof to start, to the edge of the piece, right there, and the right half of the barn roof right there. Grab the other snips, and make the turn up in there. There's the other half of that roof. Last thing to do is to knock the remaining corners off that I left for measurement. Take them out, watching for little points like that, so I didn't quite cut that one far enough. I'll get rid of that so that doesn't catch anybody's fingers on the edge of the piece, as well as down here. And then we'll flip it over and do the same on the other side again. I got just a little one there yet. All right. At that point, we're ready to run it through the lock form. This section right here, the 6 inches, is going to be scrap. This will be my radius for my throat and my radius for my heel or the back of the project. Okay, here we are at our lock form, just like before. We're going to keep it tight up against the fence. We're going to run it through lines up till it runs through, and then we're going to spin it around and do the exact same one more time. Tight against the fence, making certain it stays good. When it catches, just maintaining this back edge here snug against that fence. That's good. Turn it around and do that same procedure. Okay, being as I built this project a little bit differently, in previous projects I only had one cut to take care of here. Now this one I've got 2 cuts to make here. So let's set it in the squaring shear, line up the marks with our cut edge, and we've got our throat, our inside throat, and then we got our scrap, and we got our external heel or our back panel to cut off of there. So let's line that last one up and cut that one off as well. So here's our 2 parts. This piece here is basically no good for us, so we'll toss that one. Here we are back at the bench with our 2 parts, and looking at them, I've got my heel matching the plan, 8 inches in width by the length of the part, and I've got my throat matching the plan, the length of the part. We're just about ready to roll these, but what we need to look at is how we need to roll them. Do we need to roll them lines up or lines down as it goes through the roller? So we need to match this curvature with this edge to the outside so it rolls properly. So this one, the back panel, we've got to roll it lines up. But if I did the same thing on here, if I rolled this one lines up, then it'll be opposite. Okay, here we are at the roller, and first thing I'm going to do, and I'm working on it already, is I'm going to install the strips in the parts to prevent them from, when it rolls, from crushing that all and squeezing that down, making your life kind of miserable to install the lock form. So we're going to pop that second last piece in there, and we'll be ready to make this roll on the heel, on the outside heel, with the lines up. So we're going to open the roller, push down our roller lifting rod. Now this one here is rolled 100% to the edge, so we don't have to worry about too much on that. We're just going to set it pretty close to the edge there where it takes off, set our roller down and lock it, and then we're going to start by cranking it through the part, cranking the part through the rollers. You'll notice there's not a whole heck of a lot of tension on this one right now at the time. Okay, so we don't really have much roll. So the next thing we got to do is we got to go to the back here, and we've got to tighten our rollers. So 1-2 turns or something, real, just be consistently. And then we'll do the same over here, 1 and 2 turns consistently as well. Otherwise, you'll have a funnel shape. We'll run that one through again, and notice it's starting to come up, but it didn't move quite a bit. So let's try it again. Put another 2 turns on it, both sides, and we'll run it again. Some more. It's good to do these in little bits at a time. So if you hold it up there, you'll notice we're getting really close, and I may be even overbent just a little bit already. So we're going to pop it out and check it out. So you can do that by either releasing it, or you can just crank it, the part through. Set it on your table and see how it looks. And that one's overbent just a little bit, which is, in my opinion, a good thing, because it'll open up your lock form as you get ready to finish with what you need. Okay, I had just completed bending the rear panel of this part, the heel. Now I'm going to bend the throat. Now if you recall, the throat has to be bent lines down opposite so these flanges can roll over. So I've got my parts in there to keep them from collapsing, and I'm going to again set it in my roller here, open the lifting rod, open the roller up there, lock it down, and we're going to crank that one through. Looks like we got to go a little bit more yet. It's not quite at a 90, so I'm going to tighten that up some more. getting closer. Try a little more yet. I'm just going 2 turns at a time. Let's see what that looks like. It's fairly close to the 90. Let's see if it matches. I think that's going to work. I might have actually overbent it just a little bit. So when we open that back up, it should open those lock forms up for us. So, okay, here we are. We're back at the bench again. I've just completed the rolls for the throat as well as the heel. They're overbent just a little bit in some spots there. When we open them up, that should come out really nice and fit together. So as you can see, the inner throat was bent lines down to make sure these flanges would be able to be bent over onto the cheeks, the lock form area of the cheek, which we easy edged previously, and the heel was bent lines up, which sets your flanges so they can be bent over in the opposite direction again onto that cheek. So with that, that's going to wrap up the fabrication portion of this video for the 90-degree elbow with the radius heel and the radius throat. So next one we're going to assemble.